Welcome to the Focus on Fake series, funded by NATO Public Diplomacy and the Defence and Security Circle of the National Liberal Club based in Whitehall, London. Today, we have a very special guest from the Netherlands, Stijn Sieckelinck, who is the Professor of Practice at Hogeschool van Amsterdam. He is a researcher, teacher, consultant, program developer, but more importantly, he has been in the space of youth radicalization, conflict resolution, and political education for many years. Welcome, Stijn. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor.
And this is NATO, this is Europe, this is the pandemic. What is happening to the world through your eyes?
Well, Noel, it's hard to summarize this in a couple of sentences, but because I believe that a lot is happening at the moment, and I would say that in order to understand the power of disinformation and in this day and age, we need to look from a very broad perspective at not only the micro level elements in people's life who might be drawn into conspiracy theories and so on, but also at the macro, what is happening at the macro level, the politics, the ideologies that are shifting, and everything in between this micro and macro level. So it's a very complex situation, if you ask me, and especially because young people have legitimate reasons to be concerned, to be worried about stuff happening in their own lives, stuff happening in the group they identify with, the future of the planet even. So there are very fundamental questions that are playing a huge role, or starting to play an ever bigger role in lives of young people, and a not always successful response from the side of education, media, politics. So yeah, there's this situation in which all these institutions that used to work quite well in responding to young people's worries, young people's concerns, are losing some of their of their power, and which leads actually to an undermining of the trust in, for example, government response to the COVID crisis.
Well, I think it's very interesting, sitting as we are at the epicenter of much of the debate, that there are tribes in society, and I know that is the pillars of society in the Netherlands, very much ideological, religious, political pillars, which were the traditional way of looking at society. Everybody is in the Netherlands, but you have your own silo with your own institutions and your own perspective. Has the modern, or dare I say postmodern digital world meant that many hundreds of millions, billions of us are now in echo chambers of our own situation, where our technology and our information is coming from a narrow base, and we are forgetting to listen to other perspectives and beginning to maybe mistrust the bigger picture?
Yeah, so exactly. We're not only losing trust in government, but we're also becoming more and more afraid and also angry about voices and opinions that are not similar to ours. So there is absolutely this risk of polarization, or it has become a reality that people because the algorithms on the internet actually serve us as individuals, but not as society. We don't meet each other anymore that easily, and there is actually I think you're absolutely right that there is a similarity with the way the pillars were organized back in last century in a country as the Netherlands, where everything in your life was organized by the group of people you identified with. So you did only read the newspaper of your own socialist tribe or of your own Protestant tribe, and you did only go even to you would only buy bread at your own tribe's bakery. So it was really a very far-reaching arrangement of how people are identified. And I think in this postmodern digital age, we starting to see some echoes of this, and so it reminds us that how important it is that always people that you have that you organize as a society correct mechanisms, right, to remind people that it's actually very healthy to meet someone who disagrees with you every now and then, and that there is a way to properly discuss topics without degrading into hate speech or other destructive forms of communication. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for raising maybe and opening the door to this really challenging space where we have fake news, we have disinformation, but also we have hostile states where we can see with our eyes, we can see reports, we can understand narratives where we have not just the indigenous created within our own borders, within our own communities, challenges and toxic narratives, but toxic narratives that are coming in, dare I say it, from the east of NATO and from other societies and other political systems that are in no way, shape or form similar in our broader liberal democratic traditions.
I think they take advantage of the fact that some young people are actually vulnerable to misinformation, conspiracy theories, and even hate speech. And of course, it's part of their strategy to destabilize our societies, to delegitimize our democratic way of living. So and so it's very important from a strategical level that we see how this situation is sort of exacerbated by these external actors. And at the same time, we know from research amongst young people who get drawn into these radical spaces that we need to be very very careful in how we approach them if we want to be successful in keeping them or bringing them back to the democratic space. So what we found in our research is that if you approach them as vulnerable, which they are in a way, but if you approach them as such, or if you approach them as villains or as victims, it's actually, these are all counterproductive attitudes, or you cannot go to a solution with these people based on this. So what you need is you need to accept and acknowledge that they're trying to also becoming someone, they're developing their identities, and they express often a need to be taken seriously, to be viewed as agents who can also want to make a difference in their own lives or in their environments, and if you do that, I really think that is the strongest antidote to violence, is actually to show them a way to take control over their own lives without having to resort to these extreme to these extreme spaces, and so activism, but also mindfulness, are actually antidotes that a lot of educators are familiar with, but are often left out in how we deal with radicalism, because we are too afraid, or because we fear that we're not there really, addressing the real problems. But I think one of the biggest findings in radicalization research is actually that in many cases, in people who have become members of extremist group, the radicalization is not a problem as such. It's what is behind the radicalization, the radical experience in their own childhood, or the radicality that grow when no one was interested in their point of view, or well, as we just said, the fact that they were very vulnerable and not capable of seeing through the misinformation and the conspiracies. And I think these are, I mean, we still have some cards in our hand to tackle this, but we need to take the right turns. And if we start to lose the majority of the young people, we will never get the minority who drifts away into extremist spaces. We will never manage to keep them on board of this democratic project.
Absolutely powerful and rather sobering assessment by you. The current project which we're running for NATO looks at the three interesting big tribes: youth, people who are in the political process, well beyond just politicians, but the activists, and also those who are media content creators. So the people who create the podcasts, do the video statements, have the photos on Instagram, have the followings. Is there really a time to recognize that we have to bring people along a conversation by listening and by working with them? It is not possible to tell people. It's more that we have to collaborate and learn from our youth, from our political class, and from those who are the creative spirits in our democratic societies.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. And we need to be open for the possibility that some things might change because of, if you allow new voices to the debate, some things might shift in your society. But shutting off that possibility is the biggest, is setting the door open for more extremism. So I think this exercise, from what I've heard, what you're doing over there now in these sessions, this is absolutely critical, absolutely crucial to have these dialogues, and also involve the media makers, the content providers, because of course it's a lot about finding creative ways to deal, and especially in the digital space, to deal with the power of messages, saying that kids shouldn't watch certain messages will will not do. So you really have to look for more creative approaches. And I mean, there are some organizations out there that have been doing this for a couple of years already when it comes to tackling radicalization. So the good news is we don't have to start from scratch.
We'll stand on that very positive, encouraging, but courageous conclusion. Can I thank you on behalf of NATO Public Diplomacy and the National Liberal Club based in London? All of us in the 30 countries of NATO are joined and committed to values, and values matter. Thank you so much for joining me on the Focus on Fake podcast.
It's been a pleasure, Noel. Thank you.